Hey, everybody. Episode 152, Sons of a Bitch, an American soccer podcast. Back at you to talk some soccer on this Monday night. Nick, how you doing on this beautiful Monday fall evening?
Mike, we're talking soccer. There's not much better way for me to spend my Monday evening. Kids are in bed, all sleeping. The wife's snuggled up watching her old reruns of some show from the 90s probably, and here we are covering all things American soccer. We got MLS, we got USMNT, we got hot takes, we got headlines. This is going to be a fun one. I'm excited, buddy.
Nice. Good stuff. Yeah, we got lots to talk about, a lot of games to talk about, and we've got Amador Rojas joining us. Amador, how you doing, my man? Thanks for jumping on. Here's your shout out. Cheers to you from Nick, and happy Monday indeed. So we've got lots to touch on. First thing I want to touch on is we are going to be doing a live stream reaction coming up next Saturday? No, next Sunday. Excuse me. I take that back. We will be doing the Toronto FC Atlanta United live stream reaction, a tale of two different seasons. Toronto FC, the current Supporter Shield leaders, Atlanta United, just barely hanging around the playoff line. We'll be doing the live stream for that. We might be bringing in some fans from each side as well to our broadcast. We got to work out the specifics on that, but it's going to be fun. Also, make sure you guys subscribe. Hit that subscribe button down below. And when we reach 1,000 subscribers, if we do so by MLS Cup Final, one subscriber will be drawn to win a $250 Visa gift card. So with that being said, we've got some new followers on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. Why don't you let everybody know who's joined the conversation, Nick?
Absolutely, Mike. We want to thank Sean, the Okie Packer fan. We want to thank Inside Soccer at Inside Soccer for the sports podcast promo, Kari Fall, all caps, which is a Vancouver Whitecaps podcast. Very clever, right? All caps. Definitely watch out for the loudness of their tweets. The Keeping Tabs podcast, Pain Forever at Milan Forever 1026. The Football Comment podcast, Rich D, GZ Football podcast, and Going Tout. First rule of Going Tout, you never go tout. So I think that's a little too hip for me, but I'll take his word for it. Also want to give thanks to Nitsua A, Ben Akpebu, and Mateus Kwiatkowski for the comments on YouTube, for subscribing, for following along and joining us as we talk the beautiful game. And also a couple of shout outs as well to the Soccer Times for featuring us on their website. Go check them out. They bring writers, podcasters, bloggers from all over the soccer world to thesoccertimes.com. And a special shout out to a new friend of the show, Dominic Palumbo. We appreciate you reaching out and having a conversation with us. And I know you're a Manchester United fan, so I'm going to take this moment as an Everton fan to gloat a little bit. Everton, top of the table through the first several weeks here, 7 straight wins to open up the season in all competitions.
Wow.
So that's going to be my little moment of gloating over all the other Premier League fans. Everton looks for real right now. I'm going to take it.
All right. Enjoy it, because I didn't think I'd ever hear those words together. Everton and top of the table. So cheers to that one.
Well, I can. Cheers, Everton. Up the coffee. Here we go. We're talking American soccer tonight. We're talking MLS.
We are. And with that, let's get into some of the games. A lot of games. I think it was another 23 or 24 game week here that we just went through. All the way back to last Tuesday, Nashville and Minnesota draw 0-0, nothing there. The first game on the Wednesday night, Atlanta and Orlando, 0-0 there as well. A couple 0-0 draws, nothing really to talk about in those ones. Miami goes into Red Bull Arena and gets the victory 2-1. Toronto FC beats New England 1-0. Philadelphia 3, Cincinnati 0. Columbus and Montreal. Montreal goes in and knocks off Columbus at MAPFRE Stadium. And then Houston wins the Texas Derby 2-0 over FC Dallas. So out of those games, which one stuck out to you? I've got a couple to talk about when you're done.
Absolutely. I'm sure you're going to touch on TFC. Good win for Miami. Good contributions by their star players in that game. Nice to see. That's what you want. If you're in Miami, you want your stars scoring goals, making big plays. That's what you want to see. Tough break for the Red Bulls there. But for Columbus, Montreal, that one kind of stood out to me because, oh, goodness gracious. Thank you for the comment, Tony. I already saw Mike laughing. I wondered what the smirk was for. Blah Everton. Unbelievable. All right. Anyway, they're Manchester United fans over there in that household. But what stood out to me from the first grouping of games, again, Mike, Columbus was a team who a lot of people after the first several weeks said, hey, Columbus has got it together. They've got veteran leadership. They've got an excellent coach. They've got Jazzy Zardes scoring at a great goal clip. Like, these guys could run away with the Supporters Shield. They could run away with the Eastern Conference. Well, Columbus has really started to cool off, and a surprising 2-1 loss to a Montreal team who is just in the playoff line here, sitting in the 8th spot in the Eastern Conference. So that really stood out to me. The Crew have now gone winless in their last 3 games, and I think it was a couple losses and a draw. And their next 3 games, though, aren't any cakewalks, right? They got to play Cincinnati, which they should come away with, but it's a derby. It's a rivalry game. Who knows what will happen? Then they got to play New York City, another team who's kind of back on track. Then they got to play the ever unpredictable Houston Dynamo, a Houston team who can come out and drop 3, 4, 5 goals on their opponents, or a Houston team who can have no sort of rhythm or cohesiveness and then allow a team like the Crew to pick them apart and give up 3, 4 goals or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see how the Crew fare over their next 3 games and hopefully pick up some momentum as they ride into the end of the season. As we know, the hot teams, the teams who are on a streak into the playoffs usually do the best. So that's what stood out to me, that first grouping of games there, Mike. How about you?
Well, just a note on the Crew there. They've got to make up that game against Orlando as well. So they were scheduled to play Orlando this past weekend, and that was canceled or postponed due to 2 Crew staff members having positive tests. So another tough game, right? When you're into that, it's Orlando's tough, right? So
they're going to have to cram it in the schedule somewhere and figure out how they're going to do this, and that could be tough for both of those teams to have 3 games in a week, possibly.
Right. So that right. The other one that stands out to me is Miami beating the Red Bulls. Miami is so unpredictable, right? I mean, they've got the talent that they should win a lot of these games, but they haven't quite put it all together yet. And I think until they do so, they seem to be starting to do that a little bit better here over the last couple of games. So Miami getting the victory over the Red Bull at Red Bull Arena. I know the Red Bulls are nothing to write home about this year, but it's always been a tough place for teams to go in and play. Now, again, we've talked a lot about the COVID, the empty stadiums and all that kind of stuff. So home field advantage doesn't hold as much weight, but still with that, it's a good victory for a Miami side. Toronto FC going into New England and beating New England 1-0. Continuing to win games that they're not really dominating. You look at the teams like the Crew when they were on their hot run, they were dominating. When Seattle, the last while that they've been going, they've been dominating up until this weekend. They win the games they're supposed to win 3-1, 4-1, 4-0. And Toronto hasn't been doing that. They go out, they scrap out a game, and they win. They find a way to win these games. So going on the road to beat New England, that's a good test. New England is a decent team. They've they're in the playoff picture. Well put together squad. So a good victory for Toronto FC in that one. Philadelphia keeps on rolling, beats Cincinnati 3-0. Philadelphia, that team's good. They finally got a side that's really good. I mean, they had a team last year that was okay. They looked okay. They did well. Kind of put some scares into the hearts of teams and towards the top of the Eastern Conference.
Still growing into their position in the table, though. That's for
right.
Sure.
Yeah, and this year they look like a contender this year. So those are my thoughts on those games. How about the next set?
For sure. And real quick about Miami, that was the golazo. That was the great goal by Higuain, the rocket free kick to the top of the net from about 25 or so yards out. Like, worth going and finding the replay on that one. That is what they bought and paid for when they signed him. Those are the goals they're looking for. Yeah. The next grouping of games here, running through the schedule, NYCFC dominates DC United in their first game after Ben Olsen, 4-1. Sporting Kansas City just squeaks out a victory over Chicago, 1-0. Seattle defeats RSL 2-1. Galaxy, again, man, the Western Conference and these score lines. Galaxy lose at home to Portland 6-3. I don't understand it. This Portland was supposed to be decimated, and with injuries, and is their championship window shut? Do they have can they do it all? Are you going to be giving Diego Valeri starters minutes again? How do you manage it? They beat the Galaxy 6-3. I think they've won 5 straight when all has been said and done. And then to wrap that up, San Jose, again, what's going on in the Western Conference? Nobody can apparently win more than 2 games in a row or lose more than 2-3 games in a row. San Jose beats Vancouver 3-0. I'm looking at these score sheets. I'm watching these games going, I don't know what to make of the league anymore, Mike. I don't even think this is a COVID explanation. I think it's just the Western Conference. Like, nobody knows what's going on over there.
Yeah.
But hey, the one thing I wanted to touch on out of this group of games is DC, because we all know Ben Olsen got fired after his last game. He was a coach for 10 years for DC United. And then prior to that, I'll figure out the grammar later. Prior to that, Ben Olsen was one of the top players for the DC United franchise. If not in skill and talent, then definitely in reputation, consistency, and just being kind of part of that DC tradition. In fact, according to Opta, the stats company, Ben Olsen has either played or coached in 71% of all DC United games in their 25-year history. This guy's been around for 3/4 of DC United's games in MLS, like on the field in some way affecting the game. Like, you can't understate his effect on it. But as a coach, 36% win percentage. He's got 131 wins, 89 draws, 144 losses, a -28 goal differential overall, though I don't know how much goal differential plays into a 10-year coaching career.
Right.
So he gets let go. He gets fired. The team's struggling. They're worst in the league right now. Is that because of Ben Olsen? Is that because of the injuries? Is that because of management, ownership, not giving him the right players? You know, some people say Ben Olsen always got the most out of his players, but the players were never top-tier MLS talent to begin with. Other people say that, you know, his style was just kind of a grind it out, gut it out, disrupt the other team's style, and maybe you win by a goal or two. Maybe he's just not given enough credit for winning as many games as he did. But the fact of the matter is they have moved on from Ben Olsen, Mike. Do you think DC United is going to do anything different in the next 2, 3, 4 years? Or are they going to continue to run their organization the same way and come up with the same results? I mean, right now, assistant Chad Ashton was taken over to run the team. What's the future for DC United?
I don't know. I'm hoping that it is more of like the little flash in the pan that we saw with Wayne Rooney and, you know, kind of going after me. They have a brand new stadium there in Audi Field.
Right.
They were holding on to RFK for a long friggin' time, like way too long. I mean, that stadium like was ready to fall down. I can't believe it hasn't fallen down already, and maybe it has been imploded. I don't know, but you know, that they're finally spending the money. They've got a new stadium. They've got a good fan base there. Spend the money. It's DC United. We're not talking about you know, the league has changed from when DC United was a powerhouse. You're not going to get away with that in today's MLS. So hopefully they change things up, go for a big rebuild. Obviously, Edison Flores has not worked out. And again, I hate to throw that on a guy, you know, because he, you know, well, we've had what 10 months, you know, 8 months since the season started or since he's been over. Right. He hasn't played a ton of games because
it's an injury, not poor performance.
Right. But even when he has been there, it has been poor. He hasn't had he hasn't really been what he was in Liga MX. And I don't think there's, you know, I don't think he's really going to pan out. That's just my estimation. So okay. You move on from him. Some of the other guys, Emil Assad, they spent a bunch of money on Julian Gressel. He's done shite since he came over to DC United. He's done nothing. Well, it's probably because he doesn't have Miguel Almiron with him and Joseph Martinez with him and, you know, the guys that Atlanta had. So I say, again, you got rid of the coach, get rid of the GM, do the whole rebuild. You got to get rid of everybody. And
I totally agree.
That's DC.
I totally agree. And for those people who are saying, well, Ben Olsen never got the players to really make a difference, they have a pretty good argument. Here's a list of DC United's designated players, the guys who you want to sign for big money and make an impact. Here are their designated players going back all the way to 2008. Luciano Emilio played 2 seasons with them. Marcelo Gallardo, Branko Boskovic, Dwayne De Rosario, your boy Mike, was there from 11 to 2013. Hamdi Salihi, Rafael, Eddie Johnson of USMNT fame, Fabian Espindola, Paul Arriola, one of their current DPs, who has spent most of this season hurt with a knee injury. Wayne Rooney, couple of seasons, definitely made his impact felt in DCU, but never brought any trophies. Current DPs then Lucas Rodriguez and Edison Flores. So Paul Arriola, Lucas Rodriguez, and Edison Flores. Now Lucas Rodriguez, I mean, maybe he just needs to develop a little bit. I mean, he's only 23 years old, but if you're going to spend money, you would expect a little bit more than 6 goals and 33 appearances for DC United from one of your DPs. So I tend to give credit to those people who say Ben Olsen just didn't get the player support from ownership and management and scouting and all of that. And gosh, has anyone ever heard of DC United's development academy? Like, I haven't. Maybe I'm not looking for it enough, but I haven't heard anything about it.
No, and you're right. That is not a good list of players from, from there. I mean, no. So maybe he didn't have the players, but again, it's not like he only had a couple of years to try and figure this out. He had a long time to figure that out and never did. And, when he was given Wayne Rooney and things like that, I mean, he's had plenty of opportunities. I think, if he was with any other organization, wasn't a player for a long time, probably would have been out a long time before that. Now, Tony Pateras comes on and says there was an article that Jill Ellis would be the new coach. What do you think about that? Ooh. So that one, I mean, that would be very interesting move. First female coach in MLS history, I would assume. I don't know of any others. I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that's she's obviously been successful with the U.S. women's national team. Right. And I think that John Herdman in Canada has kind of shown that you can be successful at both sides of the coin there. He was successful with the Canadian women's national team, and now he's been successful with the Canadian men's national team. Again, this is a little bit different because you've got the national coaching experience, the national team stuff, going to a club. That might be a little bit concerning. I don't know her record as far as club coaching at all, if she's had any NWSL experience or anything like that. But I think that would be, obviously she's a very good coach. So sure, depending on the other candidates that are out on the table, I wouldn't be opposed to it.
Yeah, what bridges that gap between national coaching and club coaching is tactics, right? Like, what style do you want to play? What tactics do you want to employ? I mean, you don't go, let's see, what did it say her record here was with the U.S.? 106 wins, 7 draws, 19 losses. Or I always forget if it's 7 losses and 19 draws.
They switched those two up, yeah.
Because it's such a huge difference in this case. So you don't do that on pure talent alone. And I think she has had some memorable games where the U.S. has gutted out wins or been upset as favorites. I think it was that game against Sweden, right, where Sweden just bunkered and countered, got 1 goal, and dropped 11 behind the ball for the rest of the game. It was one of the ugliest soccer games I ever watched, but Sweden won. So Jill Ellis has the experience as a victorious coach as well as suffering some rough defeats that I think she could bring it to a club level and be very successful. Now, you want to talk about her coaching history. She coached as a college assistant from 88 to 97, took over my alma mater, University of Illinois, for a couple years, and then coached the Bruins for 11 seasons. UCLA, no slouch in the soccer world there, Mike. UCLA has been a soccer factory for men and women's players. And then since 2000, she's been involved with the United States women's national team, youth level or senior level at some point. So I think she brings a great experience. I'd love to see her coach there. If you're going to have the first woman to coach in the MLS, why not Jill Ellis? Also, other candidates, people are saying Jason Kreis's name is in the mix, and David Wagner. Right now, he's managing Schalke, and we all know how Schalke's doing. If you've been following,
yeah, he just got canned, I think.
Yeah,
I think
so,
he's. Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense. Makes sense
Right.
why his name would be in the ring. You're right. So those are kind of the names. Tony, thank you for bringing that to our attention. And thank you, Google and the internet, for giving me some quick facts right there. But yeah, there's a good article on ESPN. If you want to pay for it, The Athletic has a lot more details as well. So that's kind of everything I wanted to talk about Ben Olsen. But one last question, Mike. If you are ownership in DC United, do you keep him in some sort of like admin, technical side, ambassador role, or do you just say, hey, it's been wonderful, you're always welcome here, but your services are no longer needed?
I have no idea what else the guy brings to the table, what kind of positions they would want him for. One thing that I've learned from TFC, they do that as kind of a parting gift, right? I mean, they did it with a few guys like Danny Dichio. He's stuck on for a long time. Benoit Cheroux. They did that with Jimmy Brennan. Same deal. There was a lot of guys that were those club icons, right? And it was a nice, hey, well, we still love you. You know, you can come and be a coach of the U17s or the U14s or, you know, whatever. And it doesn't really amount to much. And then it all seems nice. Everybody's happy. Nobody gets upset. And then these guys end up leaving anyway. You know, down the road a couple of years later, or some even months later, like Benoit Cheroux, he was gone within 6 months. He went back to France. But I don't know. That's a business question. I have to know way too much more about the business to, I would say, but why not? Just go for it and make it look good. And then he'll probably go figure something else out and whatever. But out of the other candidates there, David Wagner, he's okay. Yeah, he coached in the Bundesliga, but I don't know what,
Coached in the Premier League.
Coach.
I think he was one of the first. He's the second Premier League coach behind Bob Bradley. Second American Premier League coach behind Bob Bradley. Came up with it's escaping me now. I forget what team he was with. It's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, yeah, he's got some Premier League experience. Didn't do very well there. Didn't last very long, and then didn't last very long in Schalke. But hey, yeah, he's got a couple USMNT caps in his bag there.
Right.
So he's not totally unfamiliar with American soccer.
Yeah, so if I was in charge, I wouldn't waste my time with him. Jason Kreis did really well at Real Salt Lake, not so well at New York City FC. Now RSL, very similar to DC United as far as the type of players they go after, the money that they spend on the rosters, things like that. So maybe he's a good fit there. But Tony chimes in and says, I think it would be a win for all girls soccer players not to bring in gender, but growing up playing soccer and had to go play on a guy's team because there was no girls team. This would be great. Agreed. That, it would be great from a girl's perspective and a woman's soccer perspective. And maybe it'll happen. Only time will tell. I would be 100% behind the move just based on the fact that seems like she's got a hell of a resume. And I think she's well qualified for the position. So,
especially in a time where we're seeing some of our best American women player leave the NWSL,
right,
hop over to England. I think there's been 4 or 5 signings of senior women's players moving over to England and kind of creating a little bit of a talent gap in the NWSL. So for her to take this role, you're right. It not only is she technically and experientially qualified, but it would do wonders for the game in the United States.
Agreed. So moving on from DC United, I think we spent a lot of time for the worst team in the league.
There, but favorites.
No, not at all. LA Galaxy and Portland. I want to touch on this. Portland just keeps on winning. They keep on getting results. They keep on scoring tons of goals. No Sebastian Blanco, done for the year. How does this team continue to do so? They do have a great depth. That's been proven over the year because some of those question marks in the beginning of the year as far as their depth went, those guys that are stepping up are doing well. But the Galaxy, that's what I want to touch on a little bit more, man. The Galaxy, since their 3-0 victory on September 6th against LAFC in the last version of the El Tráfico, they have lost their last 5 games, and the game before that was a 0-0 draw against San Jose. They lost to the Colorado Rapids 2-0, Real Salt Lake 2-0, Seattle 3-1, Quakes 2-1, and now 6-3 to Portland. This team is trash.
That's a whole sample size of the Western Conference. They're not just like you losing to Seattle 3 times in a row. Wow.
Right. Complete trash. I mean, dude, LA, I don't know. How does GBS, Guillermo Barros Schelotto, still have a job? That's mind-boggling to me. I mean, the amount of money that this team is spending with Chicharito, Christian Pavone, Jonathan Dos Santos, and they can't beat the Quakes. They can't beat Real Salt Lake. They can't beat Portland. I mean, are you kidding me? This is, I mean, dude, I don't know why.
The Quakes are a playoff team as of right now.
They're also the team that lost 6-1, like by 2 games in a week by the same scoreline. Yeah. So you know, it just is very, very interesting to me on how bad LA Galaxy is. I can't see them. I can't see them getting into the playoffs from this point, and I can't see the coach sticking around much longer, and I can't see Chicharito being around much longer or Pavone around much longer. Pavone's probably the games that I've watched, he seems like he's just pissed the entire time he's playing. Like he's like, I was playing for this fans. I could be in Europe making headlines for, these big clubs in Europe, but I'm here playing with this dumbass Chicharito who says, "Oh, but now that I've come to MLS, it's my retirement has started." And, and I think he scored like 1 goal since he's come over, maybe 2. And he just looks like he looks slow. He looks like he shouldn't even be on the field in MLS. So I don't know with LA, but I just can't stop ragging on him because it's bad. I mean, it is really, really bad there. Sporting Kansas City and Chicago. Sporting Kansas City with a 1-0 victory. Sporting Kansas City just keeps sticking around the top of the Western Conference. They get close, and then they kind of fall off a little bit and fall back to the middle, and then they get close again. And then they fall back again, and then they get close again. And right now they're getting close again. Maybe they challenge Seattle and Portland for that top of the West. Maybe they don't. But those are my thoughts on those games. You've got some notes here for Chicago and Sporting Kansas City. What are your thoughts?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Chicago, Kansas City, because that was another game, and this will be my, my hot minute on the Chicago Fire here. Because to me, this game was more about the Chicago Fire squandering their opportunities than it really was about Kansas City winning this game for them. Because within the first minute of the game, Chicago gets the ball in the box. Tim Melia comes out, Kansas City's goalkeeper, and just levels the Fire forward. I think it was it Barish? Pretty sure it was Barish. Just levels them. Melia gets the yellow card, and Chicago gets the penalty in the first minute of the game. Barish steps up to take the penalty. Now remember, Mike, the law of the game for goalkeepers is if they leave the line early on a penalty kick, automatic yellow card. So Melia could have been ejected in the first minute after accumulating 2 yellows had he jumped that line early. Huge advantage to the Chicago Fire here. First minute penalty. Melia is going to be hesitant off the line. Barrett steps up and just makes a mess of the penalty. It is slow and it is close to the goalkeeper. Melia guesses the right way, and the ball was easily saved. That, to me, was the turning point of the game in the first minute. Then you get the 45th minute, right before halftime. Mihailovic, oh, man, a great play. Gets around the defender. Melia comes out, chips the keeper, and off the post. So instead of going into halftime up 2-0, it is 0-0. And then Kansas City does just enough to get the goal and walk away with the 3 points. So the Fire, squandering early opportunities, same old story, Chicago Fire fans and MLS viewers. We all know this is Chicago Fire. But the Fire, here's the other thing. They just tend to keep rolling along. They're not making big transfer moves. They're not trying to shore up roster spots or get GAM-TAM, any type of other money allocation. They're just going to cruise along. They like what they have right now, and they've shown that they can play really well in a number of games this year. And they've also shown that they can blow opportunities and lay an egg like they did against Kansas City. Now, the Fire right now are currently 9th in the East, which under the new playoff, the playoff seedings in MLS, they're in a play-in game. So the Western Conference, you get your top 8 in. Eastern Conference, you get your top 6, and then the next 4 teams play in. So 7 plays 10, 11, I can't count right now. But anyway, the Chicago Fire would be playing 7 plays 10. Yeah, that's it. And then 8 and 9 would play each other. And Chicago Fire would be playing Montreal right now. I think that would be a great game to see. A team who sometimes has it, sometimes don't, versus a Montreal team who sometimes has it, sometimes don't. So I think that would be great to see as far as a matchup. If you're the Chicago Fire, you want to definitely start winning games. And you can do that in your next 3, Dallas, Kansas City, Colorado. And then they finalize the season with Cincinnati, Minnesota, and Salt Lake. I'm sorry, that's Sporting Kansas City's schedule. They should be able to jump back into the top of the Western Conference by then. So that's kind of my take on the Fire. That's kind of my take on Kansas City. By the way, Robert Barich, Chicago Fire striker, has the 2nd most shots on goal the entire season. He's got 22 shots on goal, only 7 to show for it. So would you consider a 33% goal conversion rate pretty good? Or does he need to be scoring like every 3rd game or every other game, not every 3rd shot attempt?
No, I mean, you obviously want to see more goals. I think for who he is, it's not bad. This isn't a Chicharito level signing, right? Like, oh, this guy's amazing. We've been waiting to come to MLS for years. He's going to score so many goals. It's going to be the best signing ever in history ever. No, it's Robert Barich coming from, I don't even remember what club he came from. It was like Rennes or something in France. Okay. It was not, it wasn't a huge club that he was coming over from. So
Slovenian international, right?
Right, exactly. So I mean, yeah, I'm not. I think the whole mess around with the penalty and stuff, the Fire have more penalty issues than anything else, and they just need time to gel. If this is what they're going to stick with, they just need time to grow together and become a better team. And the only way they're going to do that is by playing more games together. So from what they're doing right now, yeah, they were towards the bottom of the Eastern Conference for a while. They're kind of in that middle playoff ground. Maybe let it ride out this year.
That seems to be their plan, Mike. That seems to be their plan.
Yep. So that's for the Chicago and Sporting Kansas City. Next, before we get to our next set of games, let's take a quick break for our sponsors break. We've got our hydration break here. Skira Icelandic Water on YouTube. They are our great sponsor of YouTube. Skira Icelandic Water at every 7-Eleven in the country. Go to 7-Eleven, pick up your Skira. It's good stuff. I know. I drink it all the time. Nick, why don't you let them know on the podcast side?
Absolutely. We want to thank Donovan Food Brokerage for sponsoring our podcast for over 2 years now, for allowing us to do what we do, and that's talk soccer. Donovan Food Brokerage, a food service company located right here in the Chicagoland area, serving all your food service needs in the Midwest, whether it's K through 12, whether it's vending, whether it's refrigeration, transportation. Get in touch with Donovan Food Brokerage. And also, we want to thank Nice Premium Iceland Pure Spring Water for sponsoring our show, giving us some other great hydration available at your local Walgreens. Go pick up a bottle or 2 or 3, because when I'm not drinking this, I'm drinking that. Mike?
There you go. Nice. And yeah, we're still looking for sponsors to come join us here at Sons of a Pitch. We've got sponsorships available here with YouTube as well as on the podcast side. So get in touch with us. You can email us. Best way to do that is email us podcast@sonsofapitchsoccer.com. We had some good conversations last week regarding sponsorships. We are growing fast, and it's a great opportunity to get in on. So let's help each other grow, as easy as that sounds. So let's talk a little bit more about some of these games here. We've got Miami and Houston. Miami gets the victory over Houston, 1-0. Again, a kind of a what Houston team's going to show up? Is it going to be a good one? Is it going to be the bad one? One in the middle? Well, Miami got this one at home. I believe another Higuain goal, I believe. I can't remember if that was the case, but then we had Atlanta and New York Red Bulls. Atlanta United at home, New York Red Bulls just signing Caden Clark from Red Bulls 2. Now, Caden Clark actually follows us on Sons of Pitch Soccer on Twitter, and I have a feeling that comes with the connection with Joe Falla, who's also on Red Bulls 2. And he gets picked up. He signs his contract that day, gets the start in Atlanta, gets the game-winning and the only goal of that game. What a debut for this kid, Caden Clark, who, Caden, if you're listening, sent you a DM, come onto the show, and let's chat about your future. And
you're here. I
think you got a bright one, and so does the rest of soccer, Twitter, and the world. Lots of good things talking about Caden Clark and his future. So that was a good result there for the Red Bulls. They kind of get back on track with their new young stud signing, their new kid. Vancouver 2-1 over Real Salt Lake. New England beats New York City FC 2-1, and then LAFC beats Seattle 3-1. What LAFC, who is still good, but they've been struggling a little bit lately,
right?
And Seattle, who's pretty much the favorite to win MLS Cup again because they've just been that good, and then they go and get beat down by LAFC. I mean, I think the reason why a lot of these, these results are happening the way they do is because there's so many games so quickly that there's a lot of squad rotation going on, at least by the good teams like Seattle, Toronto. I know for a fact Toronto, we'll get into their game against Cincinnati in a little bit, but where was I going with that? They're rotating
rotations, Mike, and I know LAFC has suffered from players going overseas, and yet they still pulled the win out. Like, to me, you're right. That's when you rotate the squad. That's when you bring up your depth and see what you got. And LAFC was a prime example of that. But go ahead, finish
with Seattle. With Seattle, I'm not sure what they did, if they rotated their squad out, if they started a bunch of backup players or those second string guys that aren't getting a ton of minutes. In this one, could be. But overall, those are my thoughts for those. We've got a lot to talk about with Miami, Houston, New England. Another thing I want to touch on, though, just got released, the Colorado Rapids. The next 3 games. So the reason why we haven't been talking about Colorado Rapids is because they've had a lot of games postponed due to the little outbreak that they had of coronavirus inside their club. Well, their next 3 games have now been postponed. So they will not be playing for the next a minimum of what is it, till the through the 21st, I believe it is the earliest they can come back. This is a team who's already like 3 games below everybody else in the standings as far as games played, and now they're going to be 3 more. So I think this is interesting because, just as a note on the MLSsoccer.com website, it says this isn't because of their COVID tests. This is because in Denver, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment is seeing a very large increase in the total number of cases. So you're going to have the team not play behind closed doors because there's a lot of cases out there? That makes 0 sense to me. It's at the point now where Colorado might have to forfeit their season.
That'd be a historic thing for an MLS club to have to do.
What else are you going to do? You know what I mean? I mean, you're already playing every 3 days, right, in these games. So, and that's in order to get these whatever they deemed the necessary amount of games to get into the playoffs. So if you have a team that's going to be playing, 21 games over the season, and Colorado can only play 15, 16, 17 max, well, now all of a sudden you have a problem. You can't make up 4 games in a week. It's not going to happen. So the real thought I can have is say, hey, well, you just shut it down for the year and you're done. And the other teams, they can do a makeup game or whatever, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens with those. But I thought I'd add that in there. But why don't you give us your thoughts on some of the games, Nick?
No, I'm glad you brought that up because, we always think of the immediate, well, let's make sure the players are healthy and safe. Let's make sure that the travel is protected. Let's make sure that everything else is going well in the season. But you never think about, the opponents. You're always thinking about the actual test results. So excellent perspective there, Mike. Real quick, want to follow up on that Miami-Houston game. Lewis Morgan got the goal for Miami, the Scottish international. So someone to keep an eye on. As much as we talk about Higuain, Pellegrini, Pizarro, Lewis Morgan has got 3 goals in 3 games now, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on him. The other thing for Miami, they got 2 Higuains on the roster now, Mike. Federico Higuain transferred from DC United down to Miami for $50,000 in general allocation money in GAM. So we've got the brothers Higuain teaming up in Miami, or exactly where they're playing. I think it's a little outside of Miami, but that's not the story here, Mike. Fort Lauderdale. We have 2 Higuains in Miami, and we were talking about DC United struggles, and we talked about it before the show. You were saying, like, I bet there was a clause in Federico Higuain's contract that's like, if his brother comes to the league, he gets to move to that team if they come calling. And I'm thinking there's probably a clause in his contract too that says if his team is the worst in the league and someone comes a calling, that he gets to transfer. So kind of it's like a reverse no trade clause, like it's a must trade clause in this situation. So
yeah,
it'd be great to see the 2 of them play together. Just gonna let the announcers figure out which one they're going to call Pipa, the family nickname, and then we'll take it from there. The other thing I want to touch on, New England defeating New York City 2-1. That puts New England, Mike, back into a solid playoff spot here. They are the 6th team as we sit tonight in the Eastern Conference, so they are above the play-in games by 2 points over the Red Bulls. And recently, we had Lee Nguyen transfer back to New England. This was about a month ago. And that really kind of made me think, like, okay, New England is shoring up some depth here. They're showing up some experience for a playoff run. We've already seen a couple other teams bring in some depth. Seattle, Columbus, they're getting ready for their playoff runs. New England is doing the exact same thing. However, since Lee Nguyen has come back, the Revs have gone 3-2-2. So they're about 500 since him joining. But I did want to take a little moment to reflect back on Lee Nguyen's career, because this is a household MLS name. And I don't know if you got the graphic lined up for that one, buddy. Here we go. Lee Nguyen, midfield New England. It's incredible for me to think that he started off at PSV in the Netherlands, one of the top clubs in the Dutch league, and a club who's played in Champions League, who's had players go on to do great, great things. Lee Nguyen, a dude from Texas, playing at PSV, his first major club. Looks like, though, it didn't work out as well for him, as he ended up getting transferred to Randers in Denmark and then going to Vietnam, playing in Vietnam for a couple seasons. He is of Vietnamese descent. His parents left during the Vietnam War to come to the United States and eventually relocated to Texas. And his father actually played soccer in Vietnam. So that was probably when taking, the opportunity to go back and do something, maybe fulfill a family dream and play professionally in Vietnam. In 2012, he gets the opportunity to come over to the MLS, and that's where his kind of legend began, playing 7 seasons in New England before getting picked up by LAFC in the expansion draft and then moving to Inter Miami and now back to New England. He did have a couple youth national team call-ups, as well as 9 caps for the senior team. I think his biggest appearance was in Copa America Centenario, one of the tournaments like that. No World Cup, though, as far as my knowledge. But in the MLS, he's a member of the 50-50 club, and to me, that cements you as an MLS great, borderline MLS legend. You're a member of the 50-50 club. 55 goals, 59 assists, and 251 appearances. So this guy's been doing it game in and game out, and I threw it up there for fun. Only 2 red cards. To me, his best season was in 2017 with the Revs when he notched a double-double, 11 goals and 15 assists in just 31 appearances, even though the Revs didn't make the playoffs. And I don't think the Revolution actually won a trophy with Lee Nguyen on the team. So I was really hoping he would go pick up some hardware with LAFC or possibly something with Inter Miami this year. But you know what? He's back home. He's back in his MLS home in New England. They're happy to have him. And you know what, Mike? he might get some silverware with the New England Revolution this year. It would be really hard. I mean, it's a tough top of the Eastern Conference table, and then you still are going to have a great opponent coming out of the Western Conference. But we've seen crazier things happen in MLS, especially this year. So great to kind of take a walk down memory lane, looking a little bit more on Lee Nguyen, and hopefully he does well with New England. I don't know if you got any memories of him playing against your Toronto team. I know he's probably had a number of games with them against, when he was with the Revs. But
oh yeah.
Feel free.
Yeah, it never really stood out to me in any of those games. A good MLS player. MLS legend? That's a push. I'm not going that far with Lee Nguyen. He's never put together a good enough season in my mind. 11 goals and 15 assists in 1 year is your best year over a span of 10. It's kind of like the Chris Wondolowski. Now, yes, he is an MLS legend because of the amount of goals that he scored. But again, when you've been playing for 12 years in the league, as a striker, you're going to have some good numbers. So I'm not crazy on either one of those guys personally, but he's a good, he's a good player. He's just not what he used to be anymore. Maybe he gets a resurgence in New England. It's the best place for him. And that's it. Just to touch back on a couple comments that we missed here. Sergio Garcia said Chicharito with some emojis. Hopefully he picks up, LOL. And Daniel Young has joined us. Daniel, how you doing, man? NYCFC didn't show up. We're going to talk about – no, we're not going to talk about New York City FC again in the next section. We just talked about them losing to New England. Yes, they did not show up in that game. What is it with that team? They're looking good. They're looking back at the top of the Eastern Conference, and then all of a sudden, they're losing games. So, whatever. We'll talk more about that later. But overall, we've got a few more games to touch on before we move into our USMNT talk. We got about 13 minutes left in this one. Chicago over DC United 2-1. They don't get that little mini new coach bounce, even though it's just an interim coach. 2-1 Chicago on that one. Toronto FC goes into Cincinnati, gets a 1-0 victory, albeit controversial at the end, which has been kind of the case with a few games with Toronto lately. Sporting Kansas City, 2-1 victory over Nashville. They were up a man in that one. Philadelphia beats Montreal 2-1, and then Portland blanks San Jose 3-0. My thoughts on these games is, as we've got Freddie Lopez jumping on here. Hello. Hey, Freddie. How you doing? Welcome to the show. Make sure you subscribe if you have not done so already. And Chicago, or where was I going here? TFC. TFC, man, I'm losing my train of thought. It's been a long day, Nick. TFC, another victory. This is now 5 in a row. They're not pretty. They're not always the best victories in the world, but they're still 3 points. They're still wins. Cincinnati, it was a little controversial at the end in this one because of a penalty that was given by referee Robert Sabiga in like the 90th minute. A player for, I believe it was Alan Cruz for Cincinnati, goes up for the header, and he's running towards the goal. Omar Gonzalez is right behind him. And you see that all of a sudden Alan Cruz just goes down like a ton of bricks. And then you look back at the replay, and Omar Gonzalez has two hands out like this. No extension, no push, just had two hands up as he was going to head the ball and barely touched the guy's back. That's a tough call for me. Because I personally, even though I'm a TFC fan, I think Cincinnati got screwed on that one because the initial call was a penalty. Was it a penalty? No. It should have never gotten blown down in play. But when it was called and then you have a VAR check and it gets reversed, that I have a hard time with because he's got two hands out. He's got a hand on his back. He's touching him. You can't take that penalty back. So I think TFC got lucky in that one. They've gotten lucky in a few of these with some of these calls. Again, New York City. But again, as they've always said in the past, in teams that win championships, you need to be good, and you need to be lucky. And some of these things have come to help Toronto in these results. So they are the first team in MLS to clinch a playoff spot. Okay, we knew that. We knew it was going to happen. So no big deal. Keep pushing on. Go after the Supporters Shield, because honestly, this year, I think in this season, the Supporters Shield holds extra weight than it normally does, just because of how disjointed the season was. Where you've got some games in the beginning of the season, you've got some games in the middle of the season, you've got some games that are a tournament, but some games count, some games don't. Then you've got this rush back in where teams aren't even playing in their same cities. I think that holds a little bit more weight over that whole span than it normally does when you have a season that you're strictly playing for the playoffs. So that's my thought on that. But Portland, 5 straight wins. You can't, Portland. What are the teams here in the Eastern Conference? You see you put out a note here. Hey, everyone, thanks for jumping on. Who do you think the best team in each MLS conference? Well, in my opinion, I mean, you've got in the West, you've got Seattle and Portland. In the East, you've got it's Toronto, and then probably Columbus and or Philly, depending on what night.
Yeah, Columbus has shown they can do it, but they just haven't shown it lately, right? And if you look out West, it's Seattle and Portland. Those are the two most consistent teams. You can make a case that Sporting Kansas City, sitting 1 point behind them, is just as good as Seattle or Portland. Then again, you look at goal differential, Seattle's got plus 18. Like, that defense is going to carry them through the playoffs. So at this point, Seattle and Toronto, Mike, do you want a 4th installment of that MLS Cup matchup?
No, I don't. I really don't. I really, really don't. Please, God, no. I mean, for a league that really prides itself on parity,
right? You
can't have a 4th MLS Cup final in 5 years with the same teams. You just can't do it.
They say it about the NFL too, that league likes parity, but we all know there's none in the NFL.
Right.
Oh boy. Hey, well, let's jump in. We got a few minutes left. I want to get your thoughts on some USMNT chat that's been going on out there. For those of you who don't know, where have you been? The United States has now 10 players playing in the UEFA Champions League, in the European Champions League. It's the most we've ever had. You've got Conrad de la Fuente and Serginho Dest of Barcelona. You got Ethan Horvath, goalkeeper for Club Brugge. Tyler Adams, Red Bulls, Salzburg. Christian Pulisic at Chelsea. Weston McKennie, Juventus. Zach Steffen, Manchester City. Gio Reyna, Borussia Dortmund. Chris Richards, Bayern Munich. And Alex Mendez over in Ajax in the Netherlands. So that is like some of the best talent collected in the United States that we've ever seen. Plus, you've got Jesse Marsch coaching over in Red Bull Salzburg. Guys, and Mike, listeners, fans, are we on the edge of a golden age of American soccer? Look at these names. Look at their youth. Look at what they've already accomplished. Like, we could have 10 years of brilliant American soccer on an international level, and here I am going, why haven't I seen them play together yet? U.S. soccer, what are you doing? The Nations League is playing in Europe. South America is doing World Cup qualifying, and we're maybe playing a friendly against Australia or maybe Wales. Mike, are we wasting this talent? Are we not developing it? Like, I'm almost starting to lose it with U.S. soccer. If I haven't already lost it before like everyone else has. Please, talk me off the ledge here, buddy.
I'm not going to be able to help you with that much. Yes, we are wasting it. In their defense, it's a global pandemic, right? I mean, this is all of the national teams were stopped for a while. Now they're a little bit slow to the draw. Like, obviously all of Europe is playing again. So why haven't they figured it out? Get back on it before, and let's get these guys going. Look at these names, man. Look at the club names. Barcelona twice. Chelsea, Juventus, Manchester City, Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund. Dude, these are not Fiorentina in Italy or, Brighton Hove and Albion in the Premier League.
It's not Red Star Belgrade who gets the pity bid to the Champions League, right? Like,
Right.
these are the biggest clubs in the world.
Totally. I mean, dude, like Ajax, like these are the big time clubs that make these players into superstars. Dude, come on. Why are we not playing? Get on with it. Start playing. Pick up the phone, say, let's get some friendlies going. Like, this is nuts. I mean, and for Greg Berhalter,
like, why have we heard from
look at this? Look now again, some of these players, as far as where they are on the field, the graphic we just showed, you can't really just make an 11 out of those guys, right?
Right.
But damn it,
offensive players here.
Totally. But you better damn near make it close to that point. Like, I need to see at least 6 or 7 of these guys on the field at the same time at all times. Period.
I'm with you. You've got Adams.
Stop screwing around.
Here's your central midfield if you want it, or you throw Pulisic on the wing. Like, you've got your midfield. It's right there in front of you. You've got your goalkeepers. It's right there in front of you.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, you got to stop screwing around with
more from Berhalter. Like, say, hey, I know everyone's, looking forward to seeing these guys together, but you know what? We're doing video sessions. We're doing Zoom meetings. I'm getting on the phone with them. We're talking. I haven't heard a thing. Give me something, U.S. Soccer. Give me something, Greg Berhalter. Don't let Serginho Dest make your announcement that maybe we'll play some friendlies.
Right. Speaking of which, according to a certain tweet, I can't remember who put it out earlier, but it was Serginho Dest apparently told some reporters today that there's possible friendlies between the USMNT and Wales and Australia coming up in the next month or so. So maybe that happens, maybe it doesn't. I don't know, but get these guys on the field and start playing all these guys together. I don't care about Michael Bradley anymore. I don't care about John Brooks anymore. I don't care about
Josie
Zardes anymore. I don't care about Bobby Wood anymore. I don't care about all these guys that keep getting opportunities. Give me the young kids. I'll put it out there right now.
No Will Trapp, no Daniel Lovitz.
Absolutely. I don't give a flying F if we don't qualify for the 2022 World Cup. If you put all these kids on the field at all times. Honest to God.
That's blasphemy.
You know why?
That's blasphemy.
Because in 6 years, that amount of talent is going to be up there as a World Cup contender. Now, chances are they're going to qualify for the World Cup. But I would take it right now. Would you take a team that will be in the World Cup final in 2026 and not qualify for 2022? Or a team that, might qualify for 2022, but then they qualify for 2026 and they lose in the first round both years?
That's something. That's tough. You're not guaranteeing yourself the win. If you could guarantee the win, then you take the guaranteed win in the next cycle. But to say they won't make it this next cup and then be in the final, man, I'm that one game's excitement is too alluring. But here's the thing, Mike, it's not a question. If you were to play these 10 guys on one roster, you're going to qualify for the World Cup. Those 10 guys, and yes, I know there's 2 goalkeepers there. Those 10 guys are probably better than most of CONCACAF right now.
Oh, agreed. And so anyways, we got to talk a little bit about these some of these comments have come through. So Sergio Garcia answered your question. Eastern Conference, Orlando City. Western Conference, Seattle. Okay. Good picks there, Sergio. And Daniel Young says no Sean Johnson. Unfortunately, Daniel, I don't see Sean Johnson being in the picture when you've got Zach Steffen and Ethan Horvath, excuse me.
Yeah. Plus Matt Turner in the mix.
Right. It's kind of jumped Sean Johnson, even though I think Sean Johnson's a better keeper overall than Matt Turner over the base of his career and how much experience he's had. But, Matt Turner right now on top. Sergio Garcia also says you can't get far in a World Cup with no previous World Cup momentum. History says that. Okay, so maybe that's a caveat to my point. But I personally, if someone told me that USMNT would be in the World Cup final in 2026, I'm taking it. all day long. That's one game away from winning the World Cup, and then they'd be on home field at that. So in New York, right there with Daniel Young, because I'm sure that man's going to be at that game. From everything we've known from Daniel, he said he is like saving every dime he gets to go to that game, and I don't blame him because I would like to as well. So with that, let's wrap this up. We've hit the hour mark, man. Lots of fun talking. We've got another week coming up. Picks and predictions coming up very shortly, probably around 9:30, 9:45-ish. And lots of soccer to watch. Lots of soccer to talk about next week. Jump in. Make sure you find us on Twitter at SOP Soccer. Get into the conversation as well. Make sure you join us for our live stream reaction Sunday night. I believe it's 6:30 Central Standard Time. Toronto FC and Atlanta United. That'll be a fun one. Mm-hmm. Everybody, have a great evening, and we will see you guys very soon. Enjoy the soccer.